record it. And so we'll go ahead and get started. This is going to be just an explanation really of the individual presentation assignment that you guys have for this class, which is basically you're going to put together a PowerPoint presentation on your 4 significant life events or 4 most significant life events. And this is going to be something that's familiar to you. You know the content well, you know what those significant life events were. So you're kind of just telling your story, but I use that as an opportunity to teach you about giving a presentation because you're going to be presenting it. So there's going to be some rules and some guidelines and really do's and don'ts of giving a presentation that you're going to apply to your presentation. So that's kind of the idea. I purposely keep it simple as far as the content goes because you're kind of there's a lot to giving a presentation. I'd rather focus on that than what you're actually presenting. So I picked a topic that hopefully is easy for you to prepare for, and again focusing more on the skills of presenting and how to use presentation software like PowerPoint or Prezi. So that's really the focus of this assignment, is really just to get you utilizing presentation software, and then what do you do when you present to give an effective presentation. So that's kind of the goal. As far as your content, again, your 4 significant life events, probably the best way to approach that is just to make a list of all the events of your life that you can think of that are significant. Anything from when you were born, if you had kids, or you got married, or you got a job, or you started going back to college. I mean, literally, the list could be very long, and then just pick the 4 that are most significant out of that list, and then you're going to prepare slides for each one of those events. So I'll be going over that a little bit here in a minute because I will show you my presentation that I did as a sample, and then I'll be going over the do's and don'ts of giving a presentation, and that's really your homework assignment for this week. So let's start by, I'm going to stop sharing this screen. Let's go ahead and look at our class in Canvas here, and I'm not seeing it, so hold on a second. I'm going to go ahead and go over these 2 assignments with you first, and I think that'll help you to understand how this all fits. So let's go back to Zoom. And by the way, if you have any questions at any time while I'm presenting, please don't hesitate to just interrupt me and say, "Excuse me, professor," or you can also use the feature in Canvas that you can raise your hand, and then I'll see your hand raised and I can answer any questions that you might have as we make our way through. So first thing I'm going to do is, this is our class in Canvas. I'm going to scroll down to the 2 assignments that you're working on. So they're right here. You have an individual presentation assignment, and then you have a discussion post number 1, which is the do's and don'ts of effective presentations. I'm going to really be covering both of these assignments in this Zoom session. So I'll start with the individual presentation assignment. I'll go ahead and select that. You have one more. You have this week and next week to finish this. Even though I had you get started last week, and I just wanted to get it on your radar last week, and now this week you really should begin to dive in to preparing this assignment, and then next week you'll probably want to record it, practice it a few times and record it, and then you're going to be uploading it a week from Sunday. So I think it's the 10th of May. But this assignment is basically 2 weeks. I have 2 weeks here, 3 weeks worth. So week number 1, again, you were preparing this 5-minute PowerPoint presentation about your 4 significant life events. So again, making a list of all your events and then picking out 4 that are the most significant. And now this week, you're going to begin to start creating your slides. And so you're going to basically create in PowerPoint. And by the way, if you use PowerPoint, it gives you the ability to record and everything all in PowerPoint. You can actually have your screens up, a little video of yourself in the corner, and you can record it that way, and then you can upload it, and that's really the best way to do it. So that's why I highly recommend that you use PowerPoint. So basically go into PowerPoint, make slides, and it's pretty easy to use as a program. If you don't know how to use it, you might just want to watch a tutorial on YouTube how to use PowerPoint, but it's pretty simple. You basically create a presentation, then you start adding slides. There's all kinds of templates out there that you can get to help you with kind of the visual, how it looks, things like that. So what you're going to do is once you've kind of selected a template, and there's many templates available in PowerPoint as well, start creating slides. You're basically just going to create a title slide, a navigation slide, a slide for each of your four events, and then some kind of a conclusion slide. So altogether, you should have between 6 to 10 slides that you've created, and that's all that you need to use. And then you're going to be creating each slide with all the content that you want to share on each slide, and I'll show you that. Your slides should use bullet points and builds, and I'll explain what that is in a minute. But basically, you have your slide with all of the content on it, but you don't want the audience to see all the content right away. So you can actually set it up to build the content on the same slide as you hit the space bar or the arrow button. It'll actually build your slide. So as you're talking and giving your presentation, you're building your slide. That's what I mean by builds. It also should use pictures because PowerPoint is a visual medium, and it should be, utilized for your audience's benefit. So you want to use pictures, graphics, tables, whatever you can to make it more visually appealing. We're going to be doing transitions, and I'll show you that in a little bit here, between pages as you move from one slide to the next, or as you add builds to your slides. It'll be there's some transitions that you can use that make it a little more professional. And then as far as the size of your font, when you do create your slides, make sure your font size is at least 28 to 30, no smaller than that, because then your audience won't be able to read it if you're in a room. Yes, Bianca, you had a question, and sorry, it went away. I was about ready to answer it. Hold on a second. So, do you have to record yourself talk on every slide? Well, the nice thing is that PowerPoint will actually record your whole presentation. So as you're presenting, you're actually hitting the space bar and you're advancing through your presentation. It's recording you the whole time. And so you're basically recording yourself over every slide. And it records it as a file, as a presentation, and then you can upload that, and then I can actually watch it. Other students can watch it. So it's pretty cool. And I'll show you that a little bit later, how to do that. But yes, you'll be recording yourself on every slide. And again, it's just going to put an audio right over your whole presentation. And back to this list, then you have a font size of 28 to 30. And then there's a thing called the 6 by 6 rule. And that is basically that you should never have paragraphs of text on a PowerPoint presentation. It should be the 6 by 6 rule. So basically 6 bullet points with 6 words in each bullet point. That's the maximum you should use. And that makes your slides a lot simpler, and they're not paragraphs of text. Because if you're giving a paragraph of text, your audience is just going to read the text and they're not going to listen to you. So the idea of using the 6 by 6 rule, and I'll show you all of this in a little bit here. I'm going over it quickly, but I'll be demonstrating all of this in my presentation. But the 6 by 6 rule basically allows your audience to read what's on the screen, but then listen to what you have to say about it. And so ultimately, your screens are not your notes. They're just something to jog your memory to make you remember what you wanted to talk about. And it should be in kind of an outline form. So that's this week. So you should be starting to build your presentation this week. And then next week, starting on the 4th of May, you're going to want to record yourself giving the presentation. And I'm going to show you how to do that here in a minute. As there's some instructions right here, and there's also a video you can watch about recording it. But basically, once you've built your PowerPoint presentation, like I said, you can turn your camera on, you can turn your microphone on, you can click record, and you'll actually record yourself giving the presentation in PowerPoint. It'll have your slides on the background, have a little picture of you in the corner, and you can give your whole presentation as a video almost, and it'll record it all. And then you can play it back, and I can play it back, etc. So then you're going to upload your presentation to Canvas, and here's some guidelines. Your presentation must be 5 minutes maximum. It could be 4 minutes and 30 seconds to 5 minutes. That's the ideal. If you go any shorter than 4:30 or over 5 minutes, you start losing points. So keep in mind the idea if you're asked to give a presentation at work or somewhere else, They usually tell you you have 5 minutes or 10 minutes. You better make sure it's 5 or 10 minutes and not go 15 or 20 because then they'll probably never ask you again. So make sure you abide by the guidelines that you're given. So again, you're not going to be graded on the content of your presentation per se, but you are going to be graded on the quality of your slides. So how you prepared and built your slides, how they look, and we'll be going over all that in a minute here. And then how well you present. So whether you speak loudly, whether you're clear, the words that you choose to use, etc. That's what you're going to be graded on in this presentation. Um, if you go down the bottom, there is a rubric right here that tells you exactly what you're going to be graded on in your presentation. Now, some of this relates a little more to actually physically giving a presentation before an audience because you're doing it in Zoom or recording it in PowerPoint. Some of these things I have to stretch a little bit, like for instance, eye contact. I can't tell whether you're giving eye contact to me or not, but are you looking at the camera? That would be a way to tell that. So things like that. But that's the rubric for the assignment. So I do have my assignment of this pulled up, and I'm going to show it to you. So then I'll be reiterating a lot of what I just talked about. So let me go ahead and look at this together. Oh, I can't. It's not there. Hold on a second. Let me find it again. I did have it up here, so I got to go to PowerPoint and put it up. There we go. All right, let me reshare my screen, and I'll be going over my presentation. I'm not going to actually give my presentation, but I am gonna kind of highlight it a little bit so that you can see what we'll be looking for. So this is my presentation. So I'm gonna go ahead and it says continue to share. Yep. All right. So this is my basically a sample presentation, and this is kind of what you're shooting for with this particular presentation assignment. Now, I'm giving it to you, but I'm doing it in Zoom right now, so you guys can see me in Zoom doing it. But I'll show you in a little bit here how to do it in PowerPoint so that you can record it. But you're also welcome to do it in Zoom, just like I am right now. I'm able to share my screen, which you can see my PowerPoint, and then there's a video of me on the right side. So you're welcome to do it in Zoom, but I think you may need to I'm not sure if it's free for you to use that service or not. So you're welcome to do it there. You can record it, like you literally can go to the top up here. You can't see it on your screen, but you can click. Actually, I think you can see it here. You can click record, and it'll give you the ability to record it in Zoom, and then you can download it and you can upload it as well to as your assignment submittal, however you want to do it, or you can send it to YouTube, which is a great way to do it. YouTube will create a link, and then you just use the link to submit your assignment. I'll explain that again in a little bit here. But this is my presentation, so I'll just show you what we're looking for. So this is my title slide. So I'm going to go ahead and I have build, so it was blank, and now every time I hit the space bar, it builds. So this is my 4 significant life events. Eric Doucette, Business Communications, Spring 2025, in no particular order. My 4 events are number 1, getting hitched. Number 2, touring the world. Number 3, on mission. And number 4, down by the river. And these are the 4 events that I'd like to talk with you about today. Notice, as I'll pause, that I did build my slide as I went. In other words, every time I hit the space bar, it brought up another couple of elements to my slide. That's what I mean by building your slides. So I'm going to first talk about getting hitched. Here, what I'm talking about is marriage and family. Of course, that is a very significant event of my life. Here's a picture of my wife and I when we got married. This year will be 40 years that we've been married. This is a picture of us about 10 years ago down here on the right. In 1990, we had our first child, which was a son. We named him Andrew. In 1995, we had our daughter. We named her Miranda. Here's a picture of us about maybe 10 years ago as well. My family. In 2018, we had our first wedding. And by the way, you'll find out through this presentation that I'm actually a pastor, ordained minister. So I was able to officiate my daughter's wedding in 2018. And then I officiated my son's wedding in 2021. So that was kind of cool to be able to officiate your children's weddings. But the biggest highlight of my life is that we had our first granddaughter in 2021, and then we had our second granddaughter last year in 2025. There's a picture of the first one when she was born, and then here is her now. Well, actually, this was probably a year and a half ago. Her name's Waylon. There's her as well. She's the pride and joy of our life. And then there's the newest one. Her name is Roxy, and she's now almost 1.5. And that's a picture about a year ago of both of them. And my daughter, second event of my life is touring the world. So I was in a band back in the 80s. I was into the hair metal, so I had the big bouffant hairdos, things like that. So there's a picture of our band. We were a Christian glam rock band. We got to play all around Los Angeles, played in little Christian nightclubs, and there was such a thing back then. Outreaches in LA. We used to do churches, stuff like that. Hairspray was our friend. We would pull our hair out, make it really full. We again performed around Los Angeles. Our band's name was Spectra, and believe it or not, they mentioned us 30 years later on a local licks reality local band radio thing was going on, and they mentioned our band. They were making fun of us, I have to admit, but they still remembered us 30 years later. So we that was a lot of fun back in the day. Third significant life event is being on mission for God, and that is the call to ministry. So I was an associate pastor at Harvest Christian Fellowship in Riverside for like 10 years back in the late 90s, early 2000s. That's a big mega church over there. I was also the crusade director for the harvest events that happened at Anaheim Stadium. I put those together for a number of years. I also got to do it around the country, which was kind of cool. However, halfway through all that, I realized I really wanted to go back to college and get a degree because I was only a minister, and not that was only. I really enjoyed doing that, but I wanted to expand my horizons. So I went back to college and got a business degree, got an MBA, and then I started and also started my own church a couple of years later. And so I've been leading that for a long time. And then I got involved in teaching business. So then I became a business instructor. I kind of do a lot of things. And I became full-time at Norco in 2020. And the last event of my life is what I call Down by the River. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, Brother, Where Art Thou? But it has George Clooney and a couple of other guys, but there's a guy named Delmer in it. And they basically escaped from prison. They're trying to find some treasure. And in the process of that, Delmer comes across a bunch of people getting baptized down by the river. And so he goes down into the water and he gets baptized and he comes up, says, I'm going to be a new person now and I'm going to live a new life. And the whole movie, for the rest of the movie, he's struggling with kind of keeping this newfound commitment. But it kind of reminds me of me in a lot of ways. I was raised very religious in a religious home, but I didn't really follow it much. I pretty much lived by the trio of the 70s and 80s, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. As long as I wasn't doing all three in any one weekend, I was good with the man upstairs. But my life was pretty much empty and unfulfilled. And then I came to faith in Christ and I got saved and baptized and began to follow the Lord and eventually ended up in full-time ministry. That's my story. Does anybody have any questions? So, that's pretty much what I'm looking for. I mean, I made it very personable. It wasn't super business-like, and you're welcome to do that. But what I want to see from you is two things: how you present, and then again, how you prepared your PowerPoint slides. And I'll be showing you that here in a second. As far as presentation, you're really just trying to speak to the audience. You're trying to engage them as best you can. You want to tell your story. You want to look at the camera as much as you can, things like that. And if you notice, I wasn't reading anything. I was looking at the screen. I was presenting from my own memory, what your book calls extemporaneously. It means basically from your own memory, from your own preparation, from your own study. I did use my slides as kind of an outline. And I put up there what jogged my memory of what I wanted to talk about. So I was able to add to my slides. I wasn't just reading them. It's okay to read them, but just don't read them only and don't put all your notes on them. Just use them to jog your memory so that you can speak from your own knowledge and experience. So those are some of the do's and don'ts. Speak loud enough for people to hear you in the back if you're in a room. Stay engaged. Don't mumble. Don't speak too softly. Project your voice. Things like that all help to make you come across more confident. And of course, your use of words, the selection of your vocabulary. You don't need to be flowery or sound intellectual. Just be you. That's really the answer to any good presentation is just let your personality come through a little bit, and that'll really make it the best presentation it can be. So we'll go over the do's and don'ts here in a minute, but those are some things in general that I want to mention to you. But let's look at PowerPoint for a second, and I'm going to show you a few of these things that I did to make it to have builds and kind of what I'm looking for in your slides. So the first thing that I want to note here is the contrast of your slides. In my case, I used a dark background with light text. You can use a light background with dark text, but be aware that you don't have poor contrasting colors. So you don't want to use, blues and greens or reds and yellows. Those kinds of things are very hard for people to see, especially if they have color blindness issues. So you want to keep it very sharp contrasted. That makes your presentation easier to view when people are watching. And so that's the first thing I want to note. Second thing is I did use builds on my slide. So if I was to replay this slide again from this point, it comes up blank, right? So it comes up as a blank slide, and then I just hit the space bar and it adds the first element. Then I hit the space bar again, it adds the second element. I hit the space bar again, it adds the third element. And I can talk for as long as I want between hitting the space bar. That way you're paying attention, you're not reading ahead. So if I put everything up at once, you already read all four and I'm still talking about the first one. So I want to make sure that you're tracking with me and building your slide like I'm doing helps you to follow along as I'm speaking versus reading ahead. So that's what I mean by building your slide. If I go to the next slide here, I'm doing the same thing. I'm talking about being married. I hit the space bar, this picture came up. I hit the space bar again, that picture came up. I hit the space bar a bit again, and there's my first bullet point. Hit the space bar again. There's my second. So I can be talking about Miranda for a little bit. Then I can say not only that, but here's a picture of our family. Not only that, we had our first wedding. Now I can move on to the next item. And you're not reading ahead. If I would have put it all up, you would have been reading about my grandchildren, right? But because I'm building it, you're following along with me as I'm speaking. And that's kind of the idea of using builds. So let's go back to this slide. Well, how do you make your slide builds? And that's what I want to show you. So what the first thing you want to do is you're going to want to build the whole slide first. So you put all this on the slide. It's not going to build. It's actually going to all come up at once if you do that. In fact, I'll show you here. If you go up to animations at the top and you select animations right now, because I have it animated, notice it puts numbers next to the images in the text. You can also see it if you click the animation pane right here. It's going to open that, and that's going to give you the ability to see. It's not, for some reason, it's not coming up here. Hold on a second. Let me try that again. It looks like it stalled on me, so hold on a second. Let me go here. All right, now I'm back. So let me hit animation pane again. All right, there it is. So it came up. So this is the order in which everything's going to come up, and I can move it around if I want to. I can go, I want that to come up first. I want that to come up last. But what I'm going to do just for the sake of this presentation is I'm going to go ahead and delete all of them. So now there's no animation. So if I was to play this show again from the beginning, I want you to notice what'll happen. So here's my first slide, right? Eric Doucette, no significant order. And then I go to the next slide and look at, boom, they all came up at once. Why is that? Because I built the slide, but I didn't animate the slide yet. So that's, in order to have it build, you have to animate it. How you do that is very simple. Again, build the whole slide, put everything on it where you want it. So what I ended up doing to do that is I actually searched the internet for each of these topics, and I found myself a little icon or picture, and I downloaded it to my computer, and then I went ahead and inserted a picture up here to the slide. I said insert picture, and then I navigated on my computer to where that picture was. So it says from file, and I selected the picture and I went ahead and inserted it. Now I'm not going to do it here, but let's just assume that that picture is my first picture. I insert it. It's going to show up on my screen. It might end up looking kind of like this when it comes on the screen, way too big. Oh, you're not seeing that. Hold on. There it is. So then I might just, go ahead and, okay, I want to make that smaller. So I shrink it down. I move it to where I want it on the screen. And then I need to add text above it. So I just come up here to insert again. And I can go over here to text box. I can select that. Actually, you got to move bar here. So here's text box. So if I select that, it gives me the ability to draw a text box. Oop, I selected the pencil, sorry. Oops, let's go back up to text box. How do I get out of that? Escape that. Okay. So I want to insert. How did I get that tool? I don't know. Hold on a second. So let's go to home. All right. Insert again. Text box. Right, here we go. So now I selected the text box. I can actually draw it here. It'll make a text box. I can type in my words, whatever they are. And then once I've done the text box, I can move it to where I want it. Now I did that for all of these. I inserted 4 text boxes and then I moved them over each of the 4 pictures that I got. And so once I built the slide by doing that, inserting text boxes, inserting pictures, then in order to animate it, I went ahead and selected both items, and you do that by holding down the space bar using your mouse. I went up to animations, and right here you have all these options for animations. You can do split, you can do share, you can do peek in, you can do stripes. So I just select one. So I decided to do stripes for that one, and notice now that I've animated it, it has numbers next to it. I can select the next 2, doing the same thing, come up to animations. We're going to make that one appear. Then I'm going to select the next 2. We're going to make that one do checkerboard. And then I'm going to go ahead and do the last 2 by holding down the shift key, and we'll make that one do blinds. All right, so notice in my animation pane, they all came up in the order in which I did it. If I made a mistake, I can move them around if I want to. If I'm good with that, I can play it, and it's gonna do it all at once really quick. You won't even be able to see it. So what I'm gonna do is go ahead and play the show, and then I'm gonna go through and step each one. So again, here I am. Now I'm gonna select the space bar, the space bar, the space bar, the space bar, and they all came up as I animated them. So basically, build every slide, animate every slide by using the feature I just showed you. Over here, I have in the next slide, I have a lot of pictures. So I actually had to move these all out of the way in order to build the slide. I actually added them one at a time, but I had to move them all out. And by the way, I don't recommend doing that many pictures, but once I moved them all out of the way, I was able to then build my main slide with my bullet points, etc. The same way, I just added text boxes, and then I typed in the text box. I animated each line. In this case, you're going to want to select the line, not the box, and then you just come up to the top and animate however you want to animate it. And that's how you do it. You have to do each line at a time, but it builds over here in the pane. And that's how I built the slide. So I kept just adding to the slide, and I kept moving. I kept inserting pictures and then putting them over top the other ones. And then when I animated it, I put them in the order I wanted them to go in. And it'd be a lot easier if you don't use as many pictures that I did, and I wouldn't recommend using that many. All right, so that's pretty much how you prepare and animate your slides. Now what you're going to want to do is record your presentation, and that's what I want to show you how to do as well. So let me close out of this or close this animation stuff down. Let me go back to the first screen in my show. And then what you need to do is on PowerPoint, it says slideshow up here. Notice? So if I select slideshow, it gives me the option to record. So I'm going to select that. And so now it's ready to record. And notice you can see a video of me now in the video or on the screen, right? So there's the video. If you look at the very top, I'm not actually recording it. I just need to select this red button in order to record. But right next to it, there's a video camera. So if I click that, excuse me, if I click that, it's going to turn off the video. Notice the video disappeared of me on the screen. If I click that back on, the video appeared again. And then right next to that is a microphone. If I turn that off, you won't be able to hear me. If I turn it back on, now it's working. So I'm getting a little feedback on this, but nonetheless, that's how you record. And then when you're ready to record, your presentation's ready to go. You just select the middle button here saying record. It's going to count you down. And then it's going to pop up. Well, greetings, everybody. My name is Eric Doucette, and I'm here to give my presentation on the 4 significant life events. When I hit the space bar, guess what? It all comes up. And I just keep talking right through my presentation. As I'm talking, it's recording me. And when I get all done with the presentation, I just click the button again right here, the little record. and so I'm done. Now my presentation is ended. And when I close out of PowerPoint, it's gonna ask me, where do you want to save this file? And that's where I'll be saving my presentation. And so when you click out of PowerPoint, let's see if I can do that. If it asks me yep, no, it says continue to share. I have to close PowerPoint. So let me do that. So right here, where do you want to save your changes? So I can click save. It'll let me save it to my desktop or wherever I want to save it to. I'm not going to save it, but there you go. So that's how you record the presentation in PowerPoint. By the way, I'm not sure if you use an online version of PowerPoint, if it gives you the record feature. I'm also not sure what features you're going to have. It's best to use the downloaded version of PowerPoint. In most computers that are Microsoft based, you have PowerPoint on them because most people do use Office. Um, if you're using a Mac, there is Keystone you can use. It's very similar to PowerPoint. I'm not showing how to use that, so you have to do a little tutorial to learn how to do the same things I'm explaining here. But regardless, these are all things that you want to be aware of when it comes to giving a presentation. So the other thing is when you save your file, it's going to be quite large. So when you go to upload it to the assignment, and I'll show you how to do that here in a second, it can be quite large and it can take quite a bit of time in order for you to upload it. Sometimes it doesn't upload at all. Some students have a challenge doing that. And so if that's the case for you, my recommendation then is to go ahead and just upload it to YouTube. Open yourself up a YouTube account and upload it to YouTube, and then YouTube creates a link to that video. Then you can copy that link and you could submit it as a part of your assignment. Now, how do you submit? Well, just go to the assignment instructions where you just went, where we were looking at, and at the very bottom it says click reply. So you'll click reply right here, and then right in this box, you can type in, Professor, here's my presentation. You can attach the file right here. So you click that, attach, it'll allow you to navigate. You can't see it, but it'll allow you to navigate to your computer to where you saved your recorded presentation, and then you can upload it and then just click reply to the right over here once you've selected it, and that'll allow you to upload your presentation. So and then you're also supposed to view and comment on two other students' presentations in order for me to grade yours and to get your full score, possibility of a full score. You'll lose 10 points if you don't. So once you've uploaded yours, go ahead and start looking at what other students have uploaded. You might say, well, how do I do that? Again, just scroll to the bottom. Bianca's already got something there. So does Victor. So you can view those, you can comment, you can watch their presentation if they've uploaded a video, and you can comment on theirs, and that's part of your assignment. All right, so that's pretty much it for this assignment on the presentation. Does anybody have any questions about that? That's what you're shooting for in this assignment. All right, then I'm going to move on to this other one right here. Continued discussion post number one. So discussion post number one is the homework assignment you're working on. You have another this week and next week to finish this as well. And this is where you're coming up with the do's and don'ts of business presentation. So if you read the chapter 14, and you view these videos, you can't see them here, but when you click, well, actually they are right here. You can view these videos. You kind of learn like, what are some good do's and don'ts of business presentations. And so you need to come up with a list. So you just basically come to the bottom of this assignment. Again, you click submit down here, reply down here. You can type in your list. You can copy and you can do it on a document and upload the document. But either way, you're going to be submitting an initial list of your do's and don'ts. And do that right away. It looks like many of you already have done it. And then what you're going to do is over the next 2 weeks. So last week you should have actually uploaded your initial list. This week, you want to view what other students have put on their lists and compare it to what you put on yours. So you might say, hey, I really like that you added this to your list. So you're going to comment on two other students' lists, update yours, and then next week, you need to submit a final list. And so you have your initial list last week, your comments this week, and then your final list next week. So I should be seeing 3 different dates in which you've entered the web and completed this assignment. It's not a one and done. It's meant to be progressive, but you're going to be, uploading a final list in the last week. And so what I'm going to be doing for you right now is maybe you've already, so for instance, Lewis here has already put together a list of things. So did Ramon, and so did many others of you. So great job on that. And your initial list isn't as important as your final list because I'm going to be, well, your final list, they're all important, but your final list should be a reflection of your study as well as viewing other students' lists, and even better, because you're in this Zoom session and you watch this Zoom video, I'm actually going to be doing your final list right now. So you can use my list as your final list. And so that's what we'll look at the moment. So again, all you need to do is hit reply each time that you want to upload your own lists. And then if you want to reply or comment on other students' lists, go to their name, go to their list, and then just click reply, and you'll be replying. And I see all of that in your grading page. All right, well, then let's shift gears, and I'm going to go over then the do's and don'ts of business presentations. And it's going to be a Word document. So here you go. I already have it all prepared to kind of run through this with you. So basically, there's 2 parts to every presentation. There is the presentation itself, which is your speaking, the words you choose to use, the way that you engage with the audience, etc. And then the second part is the presentation software, which is in this case PowerPoint. So I'm going to give you the do's and don'ts of presenting and the do's and don'ts of presentation software, what you should do in utilizing that the proper way. So when presenting is the first thing I'm going to look at. So when presenting, click on my page here, sorry. The do's. So what should you do when you are presenting a presentation? Number 1, you should always be prepared, right? Know your subject, know the content. In this case, I've given you an easy content. I've given you, for the presentation, I've given you your 4 life significant events. That should be easy for you, but if you're actually giving a presentation for work or wherever else, make sure you've done your research, you've done your preparation, you've done what you need to really understand the topic that you're going to be presenting. And number 2, practice. So once you kind of know what you want to talk about, then practice sharing that. When you build your presentation, practice at least a half a dozen times. Run through the whole presentation in front of the mirror, wherever else, and practice. And practice makes perfect. Practice is the thing that will make you most comfortable when you actually go to present, especially if you do not like presenting in front of people. So practice. Number 3, make sure everything works. So if you show up to give your presentation or you're ready to record it, make sure you've run through it a few times so that you know all the builds are working as they should. If you have a video, that it's working as it should, etc. Always be ask the person, if you're going to give a presentation, can I run through my slides real quick, make sure everything's working. That's an appropriate way to be prepared. Number 4, make sure when you're speaking that you speak loud. In other words, you should project your voice. You should speak louder than you think you need to. Most students, this is where they fail the most in giving an actual physical presentation, is they speak very softly. They talk like you're sitting right next to them, and that's just not appropriate because you have people sitting in the back of the room that can't hear you. I had a lady last week that gave a presentation in one of my classes, and she spoke so soft. I was in the front row and I could barely hear her, and that means nobody in the rest of the class could really hear anything she was saying. So the presentation really, in many ways, was not useful. So make sure you speak loud. In fact, I encourage you to speak loud enough for the person in the back to hear, and speak louder than you think you need to. On the video, even on the video, project your voice. Speak loudly. Don't mumble. Smile and look at your audience. So you definitely should make eye contact. You should never be reading the screens. You should be looking at your audience. You can read them to jog your memory, but then turn back to your audience so that they see your face and they see you looking at them. Don't stare at them, but you should make eye contact with people in the audience. Definitely try and grab your audience's attention in the beginning. So maybe tell a story, maybe tell a startling statement, maybe show a picture or whatever, something to really grab their attention. That's always helpful. Give your presentation extemporaneously, not reading your notes. So again, you should not have your screens as your notes where you're just reading your screens. That anybody can do that. That's not a presentation. Secondly, if you want to use cue cards, you're fine to do that, but don't just read your cue cards and don't just read your notes. Look at them and then look up at your audience and speak from your memory, from your heart, from your knowledge. And that's what we mean by speaking extemporaneously. I think an outline is better than full notes because an outline forces you to do that, where if you have full notes, you might be nervous and then you tend to read and it sounds like you're reading. Be conversational and professional. So, in other words, don't worry about sounding flowery or too informal or formal, should I say. Just conversational. You're just like I'm talking to you right now, is how you should be giving your business presentation. Obviously, if you're very knowledgeable on a topic and you're using all kinds of vocabulary that deals with that topic, then obviously you need to. But if not, just keep it simple, keep it everyday plain language, and speak conversationally. But keep it professional. Don't be too loose or use too much slang or be too easygoing. Saying things like "you guys" or uh, you know using what we call what do they call them? Drawing a blank here. Where you use little figures of speech or little funny statements that people may not understand, they may not get. So be careful of stuff like that. And most importantly, when you're presenting, is just be yourself. That's the main thing. Don't worry about trying to be somebody else. Be yourself because that's what's going to come across. That's what's going to show your personality and make your listeners want to listen. All right, what about the don'ts? Well, don't stare at your screens and slides. That's a big one. I've seen students basically just turn, look at the slides, and read them. That's not a presentation. Don't read off the slides. Same thing. Don't read your notes. Again, if you have cue cards or notes, don't just read them. Look up at the audience. Don't speak too softly or mumble. If you notice, these are many times these are very much the opposite of what we were already talking about. So don't speak softly. Project your voice. Be aware if you're mumbling. Be watchful of verbal tics, so things like like, be careful of that. It's okay to say them occasionally, everybody does. It's not human to not do those things. And some people are very polished speakers and they never use any kind of verbal tics. A few are okay, but just don't overdo it. So this is where you might want to record yourself and then listen to yourself back because you might realize you actually say and and like a lot more than you want to. So that's pretty much it for the don'ts on presentations. And it's all pretty simple. Now, what about your presentation software? What about my PowerPoint slides? Let's go over the do's and don'ts of that. First off, be prepared, or excuse me, prepare an outline before you make your slides. So in other words, don't just sit down and go, okay, I'm going to do my 4 significant life events. Let me see, what are they? And then open PowerPoint and start typing them in. Make an outline on paper first and come up with your 4 significant life events and then maybe 4 or 5 things you want to say about each one of those events. And that basically creates your slide. You have a heading of your event and then you have 4 or 5 things that you want to say about it in kind of abbreviated form for your slides. And okay, I want to talk about my birth. I want to talk about my birth date. I want to talk about the hospital and city I was born in. I want to talk about my siblings, etc. So you want to make sure that you come up with a few things that you want to say, all outlined first, then go and start building your slides. Secondly, you should always keep your slides simple. Now, I violated this rule in my presentation because I had a lot going on with all those pictures. That's really not appropriate in a business setting. A few are fine, just not as many as I used. Use colors that contrast well, as I pointed out, light background, dark text, dark background, light text. Be careful of those odd color combinations. Definitely use pictures and graphics. PowerPoint and presentations with PowerPoint are visual mediums, and those mediums need to be visual. So you want to definitely use photos, graphs, charts, even just decorative items to make your slides more visually appealing. If you don't use any pictures, then it becomes very boring and yeah. And then follow the 6x6 rule. So if you notice, I'm using it right now, even on this worksheet. I have 6 bullet points, roughly 6 words in each bullet point. That's a perfect example of the 6 by 6 rule. What you're seeing right now under the don't do's of presentation software. I have 5 bullet points, and each one of those lines has roughly 6 words or less in it. That's how you should make your slides. Make sure your font is at least a 30 font or above. You don't want anything too small. This is another area students make mistakes, is they'll use a 12 or a 14 or an 18 and it's just too small. And they do that so they can pack more information on their slides. Don't do it. It should be 28 to 30 minimum, the smallest size that you use. And this is because you got people sitting in the back. You may not have a very large screen and they're not going to be able to see it. So make sure it's large enough for people in the back to see. Always use builds. I demonstrated that. I'm doing it right now with this. What I'm showing you is I'm building each comment as I go. If I put it all up, you're going to read it all and you're not going to listen to what I'm saying. So I'm doing it one item at a time. Do that with your slides, and I showed you how to do that in the video today. Always use a navigation slide. I didn't emphasize this, but my very first slide where I had my 4 significant life events laid out, that's called a navigation slide. And it's basically I'm telling you what I'm going to tell you, right? So today's my 4 significant life events: getting hitched, down by the river, all the 4 events I came up with. Um, I'm telling you what I'm going to tell you, right? And then the next slides were me telling you what I told you I was going to tell you. So I went through each one of those 4 points on its own slide. And then what I didn't do, what you could do, is do a conclusion slide, which is tell them what you've told them. In other words, recapping my 4 significant life events. Comes right out of your book. Tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them, what you told them. So tell them what you're going to tell them is the navigation slide. And you should always tell your audience at the beginning what we're going to cover today in this presentation. That prepares them for what to expect, right? And it lets them know, hey, we're talking about point 3. We only have one more point to go because they told us at the beginning we have 4 points. If you don't tell them, they're wondering as they're sitting there, how many points is this going to be, and how long is this person going to talk? And if you're talking for a long time on your first point, they're going to start getting nervous, right? So make sure you tell them what you're going to tell them and use a navigation slide with builds, as I did. All right, the don'ts of presentation software. Don't use your slides as your notes. Again, these are going to be very much the opposite of the do's. Don't have paragraphs of text on your slides. There should never be any paragraphs on your slides. It should always be 6 bullet points, 6 words per bullet point. The only time you can use a paragraph is if you're quoting somebody and you want to put the quote up. Those are good ways or times in which you can use a paragraph. Other than that, 6 by 6 rule. Next, you don't use too small of fonts, as I just mentioned. Nothing smaller than 28. 30, 28 is where you should shoot for. Don't have any typos. This ruins your credibility right away. When you're presenting, if you have a bunch of typos and misspelt words and things all disjungled and out of order, it just makes you look disjungled and out of order. So be careful of that. Don't have too much going on like I did. Sometimes people have, graphics that move and all the stuff, and it's unnecessary. Be careful of those transitions where, the page folds up and flies away like a bird or the curtain shut. Those are fun for your friends, but not necessarily in a business setting. Just use transitions that are like, there's different ones that are much more professional than those. So be careful of doing too much in your presentation. And that is it. That's all I have. So those are the primary do's and don'ts of business presentations. Do you guys have any questions about any of that? Anything unclear that I need to clarify?
I just wanted to clarify. So when
Okay.
we're doing the second part of our list, we're hitting reply again. So then it's going to be a separate post of
Correct.
us adding to our original list.
Correct.
Okay, and then doing that again for a third time with basically your list as a
Correct.
correction.
So I'll show you again if I can get there.
Okay.
Yeah, what you're going to do, and this is the assignment. So what you're going to do when you do your initial list, just say you haven't done anything yet. So then you're going to click reply, right? You can see that, and then you're going to type in your initial list, right? So you're going to say initial list. And then you're going to do do's and don'ts, right? And then you can make your list. And you can do do's and don'ts of presenting. So you probably want to do presenting. Sorry. And then you want to do PowerPoint. All right, so then I'm going to make my list. I type them all in, and then when I'm done, I just scroll down here and I click reply, right? So then that posts, and that's going to show up for me and other students to see. It'll say this is their initial list. No, they don't have to be in chronological order. Mine were not. Mine were not in chronological order. All right, so then I've done that. So let's just say I've made my initial post, right? Now I want to go in week 2, which is this week, and see what other students have come up with for their list. So you can just either click the list, or in this case, Lewis already has their whole list up here. So all I need to do is go, okay, I can read it right here. Then I just click reply to Lewis's, and now I can type in, hey, Lewis, I liked your list. I especially liked how etc., whatever you want to type in there. And then you're going to go ahead and click reply to him. And that becomes one of your replies. And you need to reply to 2 students at least. In fact, I won't even grade yours if you've submitted it without first you replying to other students. All right, so that's this week. Now, next week, you come back. Okay, I got my final list. In fact, I just watched the video that Professor did, and I want to put in my final list. Then just click reply. Don't reply to yourself down here if that's you. Just click reply again and do a whole new reply, and then type, in this case, just type final list. Does that make sense?
Yes, thank
And
you.
then type in your final list. Or if you did it on Word or something, I recommend just doing it all in Word and then either attaching the Word document by using the paperclip feature right here, or cut and pasting it into here, copy and paste into here. Either way, now you're doing your final list, click reply. And then what that's going to show then is it's going to show me in your grading page, it's going to show your initial list, all the replies you made to other students, and then your final list. And that's how it should come across. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? All right. Well, that pretty much is everything I wanted to say. Let's see. I had something in the chat that was, yeah, events do not need to be in chronological order. No. When I did mine, I said in no particular order. So that was kind of how I did it. All right. Well, if you don't have any further questions, I'm going to end the video recording and let that process.